Hi everybody, Elliot here, Lazy Dogs Records, and Mazzy had an idea for people to do videos of 10 albums that they really love that maybe don't get enough love on the VC. Maybe they're not that well known, or you just don't hear about them that much, or others may not consider them that good, or maybe they're guilty pleasures or whatever. So I picked out 10 records from my original record collection, not these. These are ones I've cleaned and are playing that I've collected in recent years. Over here I've got a shelf of about 1,000 records that I collected starting when I was a teenager, and which would have been in the early to mid 70s, up till they quit putting out records and replaced them with CDs. And well, you know how that went. And then I didn't have any records other than for a long time, and then I started collecting again years later. Anyway, so most of these are coming from the 70s, maybe the early 80s. And they're in alphabetical order because my records are in alphabetical order, and I didn't get very far. And then put a few back and went down below into the lower letters of the alphabet and got a couple more out of there, but I think I've got them in alphabetical order here anyway. I'll start out with Asleep at the Wheel. Collision Course is the name of this album. Really good album from 1978, if I'm not mistaken. Leader of the band, of course, Ray Benson. And Asleep at the Wheel basically almost single-handedly revitalized Western swing. Bob Wills and Texas Playboys, of course, and a few other bands from the 40s were playing Western swing, but you didn't hear much Western swing. You heard Western swing influence, but there were no bands out there playing Western swing unless it was Bob Wills, Texas Playboys would play some and things like that. I remember seeing Bob Wills and Texas Playboys and Asleep at the Wheel on Austin City Limits in the early mid-70s. But this is a really good album. It really shows the diversity of Western swing. It's got it's got 5 O'Clock Jump, the Count Basie song. This is really well done here. Randy Newman song Louisiana. One Ray Benson wrote himself, Texas Me and You. And let's see, Ghost Dancer, about the Native American movement that occurred that led to Wounded Knee and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, a really, really good album. They've got a lot of stuff. They're still out there touring today. So if you want to hear some good Western swing, I highly recommend Asleep at the Wheel. Then they called this a country album. This is not a country album. They called it a country album because it's Johnny Cash's daughter playing on it, singing on it. It's her album, and it's Rosanne Cash, and it's called 7 Year 8, and this came out, I believe, in 81. Yes, 81. Produced by her then husband, Rodney Crowell, the great songwriter, musician Rodney Crowell, and it is just a really heartfelt album. It's got the song that she wrote when she was sick and tired of Rodney running around on her, I guess what it boiled down to, called 7 Year 8. Great, great song. It's got actually a song by, I believe it's Leroy Preston, who's in the Sleep at the Wheel band, called My Baby Thinks He's a Train. But this is a very sophisticated album. She didn't grow up in the rural South or anything. She grew up in California, and she was living in New York. And so this is a lot more sophisticated than what I would consider a country album. Maybe it's a country pop album in a positive way. When you say country pop, or when I think of it, it has negative connotations. Nothing negative about this. This is a very well done album. Rosanne Cash, highly recommend that one. Meanwhile, a girl from South Carolina lived in Nashville, and for Columbia Records, made several records for them and wrote some songs, had some success songwriting in Nashville, writing for other people. This is Marshall Chapman, Me, I'm Feeling Free. And I got her old beat up cowboy hat there. And there's the back of it. Really good album. She wrote or co-wrote everything on here with the exception of Ready for the Times to Get Better. Rode Hard and Put Up Wet is the song that stands out on here. But she's packed full of great songwriting. She's really good here. Reggie Young's on the guitar on this one. Buddy Evans does the dobro and steel guitar. Pig Robbins on the piano. Janie Fricke, country singer, later would become a successful commercial country artist, is doing some background vocals on here. It recorded in the Hit Factory in New York, but she was based out of Nashville, and I'm assuming she's still around doing something these days. Let's move over to Texas, and one of the great Texas singer-songwriters and performers that you don't hear quite as much about as you do several of the artists that we think of when we think of the Texas music scene. Joe Ely, and this is Honky Tonk Masquerade, and this one came out in '78, and Lloyd Maines plays, there's Lloyd right there, plays steel guitar on here. And of course, you know, she's the father of the lead singer from the Dixie Chicks. But he does several of his own compositions, but he also does 2 or 3 compositions from Butch Hancock and one from Jimmy Dale Gilmore. Those are other Texas songwriters. And he does the Hank Williams Honky Tonkin' album. But this is a really good album. See any Joe Ely on the shelf, highly recommend it. Honky Tonk Masquerade is a very good one. Let's get into the Texas blues or blues rock here. And you don't hear many people talking about the fabulous Thunderbirds, but this was a great band. A great band in the late 70s, I guess, through the 80s, and they kept on performing in different configurations for many years. Really loved the record label, or the record jacket on this one. It's just cheesy enough to be cool, I guess you'd say. Of course, Kim Wilson, the singer and harmonica player for them. Jimmy Vaughn, lead guitarist. Keith Ferguson on bass, and Mike Buck on the drums. And several of these are written by Kim Wilson. He was kind of the driving force in that band. And this is from 1979. Had the opportunity to see these guys play at the Pier. This original band, original makeup of the band, around this same time this album came out, put on a great show. Blues, I guess you'd call it blues rock, but it was really just blues, what it was. But excellent. Highly recommend that album. And the album's title is Girls Go Wild. Don't we all wish? And a little bluegrass. It's a band out of Alabama called the Front Porch String Band. And it features Larry and Claire Lynch, brother and sister Larry and Claire. And this is a really good album on Leather Records. And Claire Lynch would go on to have some pretty good solo success in the bluegrass and gospel bluegrass ranks in the years to come. It includes the J.J. Cale song, If You're Ever in Oklahoma. That song sounds really good in the bluegrass style. Let's see. Hearts Against the Wind, Hills of Abraham. They do Wabash Cannonball. Teddy Kept On Plowing. But just a real solid bluegrass album here. That is, you know, you don't have many bluegrass albums, and you find this one, you want a good representation of good quality bluegrass. That's a good one for that time period. I love the singer-songwriters, of course, so I'd like to include Mr. Steve Goodman. And of course, Steve Goodman, most well known for writing songs for other people. He was Arlo Guthrie was playing a bar in Chicago, where Steve Goodman's from. And either before the show started or between sets, he kind of cornered Arlo and said, "Man, I want you to listen to some songs. I'm a songwriter. I want you to hear what I've got." And Arlo said, "You know, I hear this sort of stuff all the time, and I wasn't really interested, but I was going to sit down and drink a beer." So I said, "All right, you get your guitar out. You got until I finish this beer here." So first song he played was "City of New Orleans." So Arlo knew he was on to something then, and had a huge hit with his version of "City of New Orleans." Also, you know, he wrote "You Never Even Call Me by My Name," which David Allan Coe took to great chart success. He actually wrote it with, I'll show you the back of the album. He wrote it with John Prine one evening. They had been out gallivanting around, came home and said, "Well, let's write us a country song." The country song we think of. Prine was scared that it was going to offend somebody. That was all in good fun. They have total respect for country music, but he was a little concerned that it may offend some people. So he told Goodman, "Just, you know, don't put my name on it. You know, you just get it copyrighted under your name's fine." And so when they had so much success with it, with that particular song, and it's an anthem today. I mean, you can't go, you know, if you want to get a crowd rowdy that's been drinking a little bit, put on "Never Even Call Me by My Name." That'll do the trick. That'll sell a lot more beer for sure. But now Prine has his name in the songwriting credits. But after the initial success, he bought John Prine a jukebox as a thank you for them doing that album and having success. This is produced in part by Chris Christopherson, by the way, and it's got some great players on. Charlie McCoy's on here. Let's see who else. I know Vassar Clemens, I've talked about in an earlier video, is on here, and Norbert Putnam, who produced this with Chris Christopherson, also plays on this. The next, the real blues, the acoustic blues, from 1928, Mississippi John Hurt, the 1928 sessions on Yazoo, and this has got Ain't No Tellin', Got the Blues, Can't Be Satisfied, Lewis Collins, Frankie. It's got Staggo Lee Blues, which probably is Mississippi John Hurt's he's most well known for Staggo Lee, and they say he was just such a great gentleman when he was rediscovered during the folk boom, I guess it was. Worst promotional name for music that ever came out was Southern rock. Greg Allman said saying Southern rock was just like saying rock, which makes sense to me. Those first bands, that first wave of bands that came out of the South, trying to pin them down into one genre name, so bad. They called it Southern rock. And those first bands, well, Willie was a soul band, basically. The Allman Brothers were a blues, rock, jazz, jamming band before there were jam bands. Marshall Tucker Band was completely different from those other bands. Charlie Daniels was doing the little novelty songs like the Uneasy Rider and things like that. They were nothing alike, but what happened was it became, the record label said, "Oh, we got to market this. Kids are liking this. Let's market it." Called it Southern rock, and then they went out and beat the bushes for more bands to sign and record to try to take advantage of that. And of course, that killed it, because what they were looking for by the time Leonard Skinner had come out, and they became the most immediately popular of those bands, they tried to use Leonard Skinner as a cookie cutter model for what all the bands should sound like. But a few emerged, Outlaws emerged, and they didn't sound like these other bands. But it's just such a disservice to give it that name, Southern rock. Marshall Tucker Band were unique unto themselves, out of Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina. Spartanburg, actually, I believe. And a couple of these guys had just gotten out of Vietnam, out of the war. They come home, they formed a band, they were playing around, and they lucked up and got signed to Capricorn. Toy Caldwell being the driving force in the band. And they put out a solid 6 or 7 albums, if not, you could really stretch it out to 10 albums, probably, that they stretched out. This band should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Good gosh, you call them Southern Rock? This is a band that's using the flute and using the saxophone, alto flute, alto saxophone, the flute by Jerry Eubanks. Which one? Well, that's Jerry right there. And they're so different from the other bands that they tried to put under that, fit into that neat little category there. But this is a great album. This is their debut album. Beautiful. Always had beautiful album covers, the first few at least. But Marshall Tucker Band, and of course this one has got the classic Take the Highway and the classic Can't You See, which is one of the great jam songs you can think of. Marshall Tucker needs to be given a little love these days. And my last of the 10 is Bonnie Raitt, and this one is Sweet Forgiveness, and this one came out, I believe I decided this came out in '77, I think. It's a really good album, and there she is with some of the band members. And several members of Little Feat are on this album, and she does Bill Payne from Little Feat's Taking My Time. She does Jackson Browne's My Opening Farewell, does a great job on that. The title track, Sweet Forgiveness, is wonderful. Dale Shannon's song Runaway, she does that. But one of the great slide players, Bonnie Raitt. Not just, shouldn't say the great female slide player, no, she's a great slide player. Instrument knows no gender. So those are my 10 picks for albums I love, play a lot, that maybe don't get enough credit, don't get talked about or mentioned enough. Now, they were also doing something on solo piano albums, and somebody did a classical one, somebody did jazz, a couple people did jazz ones. So I don't have 10 that I could probably go to with any authority. But what you've been listening to right now is Dr. John, and this is just Dr. John playing the piano and singing. And the album is from 1981, and the album is called Dr. John Plays Mac, however you say his real last name. This is Dr. John's real name, Mac Rebennack, I guess is how somebody can help me on that one, how you would say that. But this is a really good, nothing but the piano and the voice of Dr. John. Well, Dr. John just quit playing. I guess I better say goodbye. Everybody, it's ran a little longer than I planned on it, but don't they all? I'll just say, I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving, and remember, be kind to your neighbor, and everybody is your neighbor. So long.